We are into the second month, at least from a calendar perspective, of the National Hockey League season, into the fourth week of the campaign. It's been very eventful on the National Hockey League side, and we continue to make a little bit of inroads on the amateur front. This is In Goal Radio, the podcast. Darren Millard, along with the co-founders of In Goal Magazine, David Hutchison, standing by, along with Kevin Woodley, preparing everything on that front as we look ahead to our feature interview brought to you by Sensorina VR today with the recently retired Jimmy Howard, who is one of us. He's a former goalie, an old goalie, if you want to call him that. Jimmy Howard is a really fun guest today as we reflect over his time with the Detroit Red Wings. And we'll also spend some time, Woody, over at the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, Source for Sports Surrey, talking about neck protection, and Source for Sports Surrey, the Hockey Shop, all kinds of great things happening with Cam and the fellas.
Yeah, you know what? I got to hang out with the folks at the Hockey Shop, but not at the Hockey Shop. Just the other day, little tease on the ice, shooting some footage. All the new lines are starting to come in. We had Bauer's new Hyperlight gear out there, CCM with the E-Flex 5. Speaking of neck protection, there's an exciting new one coming out in April. Lots of really exciting new sticks, pads, gloves. Was really digging both the E-Flex 5 for some of the properties that we haven't yet been able to discuss publicly, but soon we'll be able to. Same with the Bauer Hyperlight. I think those are going to be some really exciting lines this year. So had them out on the ice, did some photography in them, did some movement drills, did some sliding. It actually looked like goalies out there. It was awesome. And that's sort of why you go to the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com, because they're not just out there shooting marketing footage, although we got some of that. They're out there trying to get a feel for the gear so that when you go to shop with them, you're going to know how it plays, how it performs, how it rotates on your leg, how that skate fits. We had some new models out there. Is the pitch forward? Is the pitch backward? Are you in a neutral angle? Are you really pitch forward? Is it a really stiff boot? Is it softer? Those are the answers you get when you talk to the staff from the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com. Because they play the position. They're not just out there playing around. They actually know what it is to be a goalie. They know how the equipment works and performs and whether it's going to suit your game. So make sure you check them out at the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. And yes, make sure you keep an eye on the website for all the reviews coming up, into March and April for all the new lines. But in the meantime, don't forget everything else is on sale right now. A lot of sales around the store, including last week's Warrior V1 stick line, still heavily discounted at thehockeyshop.com. But also, if anything's not on sale, roll in that In Goal 20 discount promo and get yourself 20% off regardless.
I have a question about you and this equipment. But first, I want to just follow it up. How far in advance would the Hockey Shop get the new gear before they can actually sell the new gear?
So they've had hands-on and demos, and in terms of like reps coming through with what we call PKs or product knowledge sessions, late last year. So they've seen it. Cam, that's the beauty of going to the Hockey Shop, is Cam is actually, sort of risen through the ranks of the broader Source for Sports in terms of the buying power and the group and the decisions they make about, source specific specs on some of the goalie equipment. So Cam's a guy who in non-COVID times would be flying to events like Bauer World, would be flying to Montreal, to the CCM factories to see their R&D, would be checking out all the manufacturers in person. And so, seeing this stuff as early as anyone outside of maybe us, Hutch, right? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink to all those trips back east. And then they get them, kind of now, like early, we're still, February on the ice with them in February. You've still got sort of April and May are your launches for this year, depending on the brand. So 2-3 months ahead of time. And like I said, I love that, Cam's out there in the gear the other day, but he has his staff out there with him. Maybe not every single guy, because not everyone's full time, but then they talk about it. They go through it. They talk about the lines, how it plays, how it performs, what they like, what they don't like, things that they think are going to work for certain styles and other things that work for different styles. So it's kind of cool to see that process play out, and it's cool to see how passionate they are about it.
Hutch, you have been through this hundreds of times when he goes through gear for the first time and seeing it for the first time. What did you have a favorite? Would you go straight to the pads, the gloves? What would you go to first when you saw a new product line?
It's definitely the pads. I think the biggest innovation stands out there, and of course, we're all excited about the designs. So, um, I go there, even though Woody loves to go to the hockey shop all the time and massage the gloves and make sure that they're all broken in appropriately and see what fits his hand best. Secondary for me for some reason, but what about you, Darren?
Yeah, I'm gloved too. I'm
Yeah.
right there with Woody. And Woody, was that the first time you've been on the ice? Curious.
Yeah, that's the first time I've been on the ice since March, but I should throw a caveat out there, Darren. I was out there in videographer and photography mode, not in full gear mode. So sadly, still haven't stopped a puck in 10 months.
Must have really killed you.
Yeah, it did. It did. I was just gonna say though, to go back to Hutch's, I think one of the reasons he goes to the pads and not the gloves is because even though they will order you a full adult glove with a kid-sized intermediate palm, they don't tend to carry a lot of them in stock, and so Hutch has a little trouble closing the big boy gloves on the wall. Sometimes.
Buddy, you could chirp me all you want about that, but that's literally what I ordered last time.
Your hands are that tiny?
Oh yeah, baby hands.
Wow.
Yeah, baby feet too, but I'm just little.
Yeah, no wonder you didn't make it.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, that's it. If you would just extend those fingers a little bit.
The problem is I'm so old. They actually had 5'8" goalies in the NHL when I played.
Remember the gloves that didn't have the webbing in them, like that?
Yeah,
just looked
that was the GM 12, right? No, that
12?
was the 21. One was 21, one was 12. I had the
the
webbing.
12 had no webbing in it.
Yeah,
It was just
I hated that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, when we talk about the hockey shop, I had to leave for our Jimmy Howard interview to tease the feature interview for this week. I actually had to leave the on ice session a little early, so I didn't see them actually get it on the ice. But you guys have probably seen that new glove that Warrior has, where instead of sort of where it's got sort of like a prefab webbing in it. They actually had one of those on the ice testing it at the hockey shop.
So what is
the
that
Warrior
webbing?
glove? And what was interesting about it is they liked the way the puck stuck, but there's no give in it. So literally felt like and this isn't something that's going to be in the next model. This is just R&D that Warrior's doing. So like, don't panic. They're not going to change this. But their feedback was, and the guy's feedback was that it hits that webbing because there's no give, even though it sucks the puck up. It actually snaps your hand back more than other gloves were. So as part of that testing and that process with Warrior, it's interesting to see that, they were getting some feedback from the guys at the hockey shop, and fascinating to see it too. And, to be honest with you, Hutch, I had it on my hand. I checked it out, and I was sort of playing with it, but I didn't look closely enough and, frankly, don't have a degree in materials. So I can't
How
tell
much
you
closer do you
exactly
need
what
to
it
be
was.
than it's on your hand?
Well, I just didn't know what the material is.
You don't
That's
need
what
a
I'm saying.
degree either. Like, you compare it to something. Is
I
it
don't
the
know.
plastic that holds your
No,
pop
it
cans
was
together, or-
material. Like it was material. It just didn't have a lot of flex to it. So thin. It was thinner, like a thin webbing. But it's funny because you look at it and you think it might be stretchy. It actually looks like it might have some elasticity or stretchy properties to it, but it really doesn't. So I don't have the full details on it. I mean, give them credit. I think Goalie Gear Nerd had the first pictures on the Instagram account of that new glove webbing that they were, again, not putting in the glove, but experimenting with. But it was kind of cool to see one on the ice and to hear the feedback from the guys who were actually trying it. The feedback was, hey, I think there's something there. You just need to allow it to have a little more give than it does right now. Because, if you're noticeably feeling how much more your hand's being pushed back when pucks end up in the pocket, and again, the good news is the puck stayed there. But if you're noticing that, as that's your first impression, that's probably not a good sign. Now, the one other side of this is we were one end of the rink was goalies, the other end of the rink they had some really high end shooters that work there, taking photos of the latest in sticks and other technology. So you had some guys that could chuck it that were tossing the puck in on them. So interesting though to hear that feedback, and interesting again, to see that there's R&D out there, new things being developed. The Bauer Hyperlight pad is loaded with new sort of developments, 3 or 4 real main points that we'll get to when closer to launch time, and just cool to sort of get to be around as these guys test it out for the first time.
Every time I think you're winding down, I take a breath to talk, and then you crank it back up. Can you guys
Got a lot of coffee today?
Woody, can you describe what we're talking about with this pocket the best you can? I know you didn't have a close enough look at it.
Like it almost looks like, it's funny because it almost looks like lace from a distance when I look at the but I don't actually. Yeah, but I
It's a
don't.
bizarre
actually,
trend since people want skate lace
Skate
because
lace.
it's got more give.
Is that why you use skate lace?
I think.
Yeah.
A feel thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's two things. One, it's got more give, so it's got a little more flex, and the idea is it's got a thicker surface area and more give, and that combination will reduce the spin on a puck on a heavy shot, and more likely to keep that in the pocket through that combination of surface area. Because when you hear heavy shot, what my understanding is of a heavy shot is a shot with more spin on it. And that's more likely to pop out of a glove unless you catch it perfectly in the pocket. And the idea of even if you get it perfectly in the pocket is that one has, with more spin, again, more surface area, more stretch, more ability to take some of that spin out and hold a heavy shot in a pocket of a glove, even if it doesn't go perfectly into it. Those are the ones, the spinners, the heavy ones, those are the ones that you feel because they kind of stick to you a little longer because they're spinning and they leave a little more rubber behind. They're also the ones that tend to leave that, that distinct smell of burning rubber when you take one off the mask. Alex Auld has some great stories of, he had one that off the jersey, it actually burnt a hole in his jersey and he could smell it like the burning rubber. And then the next day when they showed him the laundry, it actually burnt a hole in the jersey.
Wow. I just think skate lace looks better too. There's cool.
That. Yeah.
100%.
And Hutch and I are very vain, so we'll go with that. We are two of the most fashion conscious mirror people in the world.
And I have
Aren't
nothing to be vain about. So how is that?
We are very vain. So hockey, the hockey shop, thehockeyshop.com, source for sports Surrey, all your equipment needs, including neck protection. And we won't get into the whole dangler thing, but neck protection, Woody, if you can tee up what you guys do with Cam.
Yeah, we just basically walk through all the different options. Some are BNQ certified for minor hockey. Some are not. Some are a little narrower profile. Vaughn, for example, makes one that is BNQ certified, a little taller profile around the neck, and one that isn't. And that's basically means it has a skate-proof layer to it, skate-proof element to it. So we go through all the different models, including a new one from Aegis that was designed in part or in coordination or consultation with our friend John from the GoalNet account on Instagram. And that's one that I've actually tested for a long time and really like. They use D3O in there. And I just find it to be like, I've taken some wearing that I know if I was wearing my old, standard stock, thin, non-certified Vaughn, I would feel, or I'd have, I'd be taking vanity pictures in the mirror to show off my bruises. Yet to have a bruise in this one from Aegis. So we walk through all those lines, including that new one with the D3O in it with Cam at the Hockey Shop.
It's neck protection as we visit the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, source for sports Surrey on In Goal Radio, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, source for sports. We're down here in goalie utopia, surrounded by the latest and the greatest. And Cam. We're going to talk a little neck guard here. We're going to talk multiple neck guards here once I get you to stop laughing.
Wow. Sorry, I got nothing. Wow.
Trying to make you feel good about yourself, my friend. It's all about self-confidence. Speaking of self-confidence, I got to say, when I'm wearing this neck guard, and we're going to get through all of them, I got a ton of confidence because I've taken some absolute clap bombs off this thing. And me, I normally close my eyes and pull everything back and away from the puck because I suck, which exposes my neck. This thing's really protective. Let's walk through all the different models. Maybe we'll end with this one, Cam, because it's a newer model, not by a brand that a lot of people will recognize. Let's start with what you're wearing. Bright red, fashionable, from Vaughn. What are some of the different models and some of the different options in terms of certified, non-certified? I'll turn it over to you. Walk us through your area of expertise in neck protection.
All right, so what I'm wearing right here is the Vaughn SLR uncertified neck guard. And what that means is, and we'll cover that really quick. So certified, B&Q certified neck guard as required by minor hockey means that there's ballistic nylon sewn into the actual neckline of the neck guard itself. What that will prevent against is skate cuts. It needs to have that stamp right there to be B&Q certified. Why we have neck guards that are uncertified and things like that. I'll kind of cover here. For starters, so with this SLR neck guard that I was wearing, again, it doesn't have that higher neckline. It doesn't fully wrap around in the back, so it's an uncertified neck guard. For me personally, because I'm not playing minor hockey anymore, I don't need to wear that. I choose to wear actually one of the player turtlenecks that does have the P&Q certified neck guard in it, so at least I have kind of some sort of slash guard protection there. But for me, I've always kind of hated the feeling of something being like wrapped around my neck. So this is a little bit more open, still allows my good freedom of movement, but I'm still getting good collarbone protection overall from the actual neck guard itself. And not something to be misconstrued here a little bit. Some do provide good overall neck protection, which we'll cover in a second. But if you're really concerned about the overall neck, wear a dangler. That's going to give you the most protection overall. I'll be honest, I'll be one of the first ones to say that I don't wear one.
Oh, so I was just going to say, you like immediately went into Darren Millard's good books when you said wear a dangler and told everyone to wear a dangler. And then the follow-up is I don't.
As a common theme in the entire world right now, don't do what Johnny Don't does. Take a second to comprehend that.
Yeah, I'm not yeah, you can almost see like the little wheels turning in my head. Okay, so certified, non-certified, different options within different models.
Correct, yeah. So now, basically what is an identical neck guard, this Vaughn 7000 neck guard actually has that B&Q certified wraparound. A good example, NHL call out to this is Tuukka Rask. You can see this one sitting every time you get a shot of his upper torso and face and whatnot. You can see this one sticking out. This is exactly what he's wearing, although it might be modded a little bit. Who knows? That said, very well selling neck guard for us. Basic, but it gets the job done. It has that B&Q, which you need for that minor hockey. It's still got that good collarbone protection.
Little higher profile in terms of like a little thicker neck protection, not just the different material, but a little thicker neck protection than the non-certified Vaughn.
Correct. Those that are watching, you can really see how much higher it comes up on me versus that first one that I was wearing. Those that are listening, it's coming basically right up to just below my chin. So again, good coverage, good protection, a great option to kind of start you off the bat, but we do have more options.
I was going to say I introduced you as a neck expert. What I didn't want to say is because you talked about it coming up to your chin. I was going to say which one.
Oh, well, you could really say I was sticking my neck out there for you, and you just ran over me.
Yes, I did. little holiday, little extra stuffing at the holiday dinner, eh, bud?
A little extra stuffing. It's Balkan season, Kevin.
All right, Bauer.
Very comfortable neckline to this one. Not as thick in comparison to the Vaughn. Quite a bit wider.
And this is just the Bauer Supreme model.
The Bauer Supreme line, yes, exactly.
B&Q certified.
Correct. Quite a bit wider in terms of collarbone protection as well. It almost wraps around basically to my shoulders in particular. Again, just giving you that upper padding. Nice stiff neck guard, especially for that padding, integrating their pour-on into it. And yes, B&Q certified. Softer neckline really allows for ease of neck mobility on it too as well, without that kind of, again, like choking out feel.
So it's got the padding around the front, but that B&Q and that higher profile, it's not padded, folks. So it's a lot more flexible. It's a lot of just material wrapping around the neck to protect you from that skate cut, but still allow that range of motion in terms of the neck and no interference. Much wider across the shoulders. Just that, actually, to be honest with you, first time I've seen it, and immediately, despite the fact I talked about the model I'm wearing being the one I used, I look at this and I'm like, that's one I'd like to try, especially with the pour-on built in, especially with that protection through the collarbone area. It looks like a really nice model.
Again, another one that's a really good seller for us as well. So, but again, as goalies are, and as myself, I like options. Brian's Optic neck guard. Nothing too fancy with this guy. What makes it stand out a little bit on the wall? Non-certified neck guard, but very flexible with the segmentation that they've offered into it. So again, in terms of integrating it with your chest and mobility-wise, it's going to help to move with you and not against you, or shift or slide and things like that. A nice high neckline still, and a padded neckline with this one, even more so than some of the other uncertified neck guards that we showed kind of just previously. This one does kind of come all the way up to my chin, so it's a bit taller in that neck for sure. That said, I still don't feel restricted by it by any means. Good level of protection. Another great option.
Second to last is the one I'm wearing.
The Aegis.
The Aegis.
Interceptor.
See, and the reason I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. So I let you lead. So everyone's like, he's been talking about this neck guard for 5 minutes that he's been wearing, and yet we don't know what it is. So this is the Aegis model. The GoalNet, our friend John at the GoalNet was involved in designing this one. They sent us an early sample. Has the D3O built in. You can see the orange in it, the call out with both in terms of the label and the logo, but also you can actually see the D3O in it. It does have a thicker neck in terms of the piece that wraps around the front. If you wear it tight, some people have talked about, maybe it's sitting too high and restricting mobility. I just wear mine a little looser and find that I have no problems with that. But one of the interesting things is you can actually take that piece of foam that lines the front of the neck, you can actually take it out of the sleeve and trim it and cut it to a more contour shape that allows you to move your neck. So it's removable, it's washable. Much like we talked about Bauer having the pour-on in it, what I love about this model is the fact that they've integrated a higher end foam, an impact absorbent foam like D3O. And like I said, I've taken some absolute knocks with this thing and yet to leave a mark. The only time I ever felt one is there is a bit of a gap in between the seams, especially on the earlier model I had. Feels like they've tightened it up here, and I caught a puck that went right in that seam and left a little mark. But we've all been there. It's just part of being a goaltender. You just get absolutely black and blue on the collarbones. I've taken some that in the past with wearing this that I know in past models would have left me black and blue and didn't wearing this model. It is a bit of a bigger unit in terms of profile and fit, but a lot of protection here. What's been the feedback on your end? Obviously, I shared my experiences.
Yeah, so I mean, you touched kind of a couple of really important topics. Like one of the things that you can really say about this neck guard, it was designed by goalies for goalies, with especially a feedback of quite a few prominent influencers as well as retailers. As well as to what, specifically we're hearing and what's needed in the market, especially for neck guards. The biggest thing is that impact protection. As being one myself, it's taken a hard one, especially into that like special area in between your mask and in between that chest guard right up into there. That impact resistant foam, the tried, proven, and tested D3O in there is really going to help to make that difference in terms of, whether or not you're just shaking it off and moving on to the next shot or you're down for the count for a while.
Let's be honest, I am a total drama queen. Anybody who's played with me knows that down for the count is pretty much twice a game for me minimum, whether it actually hurts or not.
Usually after you get scored.
Well, then I'd be down for the count all night. But with this model, I am less of a drama queen because I can't feel it.
Amazing. There you go. Drama queen approved.
We got one more before, as much as I'd love to end on Drama Queen approved, which I pretty much had coming after taking a shot at your multiple chins. Integrated CCM with the shirt. Walk me through this one and what makes it special or different. We can see that, it's got your traditional sort of protection in front of the neck in terms of foam, but then also B&Q certified around the neck, more of like a fabric that cut-proof fabric around the neck as opposed to a really high profile with the foam layer itself.
Correct. So this guy here, a lot of extra stern. I might as well just put it on because it will help to exemplify the coverage and kind of what it's going to do for you here. As you can see, it's a little bit of an extra like overall layer and whatnot, but wraps around a lot of extra chest plate protection too as well. So especially for those shots and absorbing them, you have a little bit of an extra layer for coverage. Neckline covers quite well. Nice stiff padding. You can actually hear that knock, and I'm sure it's quite audible. Again, the B&Q neckline still kind of comes up. It's quite soft too as well. So especially if you don't like some of the more irritating like air-knit materials and things like that are used, this one's quite soft. Doesn't bother my neck at all. Feel protected. Feels like I'm wearing a really small muscle shirt.
This is kind of like I was gonna say, like to be honest with you, like forget the neck protection, take that neck protector out, and this is pretty much your Saturday night shirt, isn't it?
It's going out.
This is what, yes. So, if you would like some advice on what neck model, what neck protector might fit your game, fit your style, fit your preferences in terms of mobility, do you recommend if people can come in store, would you have them put a helmet on? A mask on, maybe in non-COVID times, have them put a mask on and see how it moves?
Yeah, actually a couple different things. You can throw on a chest pad too as well, throw on what you're wearing, see how it integrates and stuff like that. Most of the time, this is a bit of an autopilot category where, you come in, you look, you buy sort of thing, but it is worth trying on and testing, especially if you have the time, especially if you're looking at something different from what you've worn in the past. Just to see how it feels, how it integrates, because this is one of those products that, again, once you use it, you can't return it. So you want to be sure. So
Okay, and if they've got any questions, because they can't come in, or if they're from out of town and they want to ask you about it, make sure you check out all the reviews at thehockeyshop.com. Cam, where can they get a hold of you for if they got some personal questions?
They can give me a call at 604-589-8299.
And the 1-800 number?
1-800.
1-800-567-7790. Cam, how do you not know this yet? Get it together. Hutch is getting tired of saving you.
Hutch keeps bailing you out. Eventually, we're going to, that's not going to be funny anymore. It's just going to be incompetent. So we're going to have to get you to actually do some homework.
That is one of the more individual pieces of equipment. It just whether it's breathability, whether it's protection for the clavicle area as well as the neck. There's a lot that goes on with the neck protection. You could also just wear a dangler and really make sure that you're covered. But
we should probably have both.
Not all of us.
Or
not
both.
all of us. Or both. Or both. Yeah. So what do you guys think? Next time you go out, dangler and neck protection?
I'm probably just going to stick with the neck protection.
Yeah. Hey, do as we say.
I don't have either. I don't have either, just to make you feel even better.
That's why I'm
You're
so
dad
happy
now.
every
Every
day that we get together and we record this week's version of In Goal Radio, the podcast, episode number, blah, blah, blah. I'm always just very happy that the two of you guys show up because I know that you haven't taken any type of shot to the neck and you're not in the sidelines.
Well, I mean, you don't really have to worry in Hutch's case about getting hit in the neck when you're so old that you still make skate saves and stand up the whole time. It's less of a risk.
We will get into the Lexan guards because they haven't changed in about 40 years. And you could take one from 35 years ago, put it on, and it wouldn't stand out as it's the one piece of equipment that wouldn't really stand out as, oh, you're using a piece of 35-year-old equipment. That is out of this world.
Okay, and so maybe we need to reinvent the wheel, and then maybe, you know how me and Hutch, we like our innovation and our new latest and greatest stuff here at Ingalls. So maybe we need to find the latest and greatest in danglers and throat protection to get us on board. But interesting you say that, because I remember we had a conversation with Ryan Miller, this is just a couple of years ago, talking about how you could say the same thing for masks. And this was on the eve of companies like Bauer and CCM sort of starting to change that game by adding new impact absorbing foams, doing the type of research, changing some of the shell construction, but mostly just going with foams that would help absorb some of the impact. As Miller said, like most of these masks are just, we're in the NHL and they're lined with the same foams that we've had for over 30 years. It hasn't changed. And that was at a time when we were seeing some issues in terms of head protection and shot impact. So, sometimes those things take a little while to get going, but I think you can, as we've done over the years here, applauded the efforts of the companies that are trying to find ways to make them more protective at all levels, right up to the NHL.
Okay, so we missed the boat on the foam, but we can still nail it with the Lexan. I'm telling you, like a little bit of tint, a little bit of sizzle, something different. We can still really dominate the world with that.
Custom graphics,
cocktail napkin design.
Yeah.
Hutch?
You are Hutch. You are a cocktail napkin designer for sure. Like when it comes to R&D, I can see it written all over your face.
You think so? All right. Well,
yeah.
Let's see what we can come up with. I don't know.
Listen,
the wheel's been around for a while too. You can't reinvent everything.
Listen, we had one of our best mask contest submissions was the person that submitted the one that had a dangler on it and tied the design of the dangler into the design of the mask, made it all one big piece. So maybe there you go, Darren. Maybe that's the next step. Custom danglers that integrate into the design of the mask and make that a coordinated effort. Hutch is just shaking his head right now. He's like, you idiots.
There is no limits to the imagination. And that's sort of where Sense Arena VR comes in. Like no limits when it comes to technology, integrating with training and making sure that you are ready. And Sense VR continues to be our presenting sponsor of the feature interview this week, chatting with Jimmy Howard and Sense Arena VR. Whenever I see the Instagram posts, I just light up to see what exactly is coming my way.
It's pretty exciting, isn't it? And you talk about innovation. This is game-changing innovation, and everybody I speak with who's tried the Sense Arena is really thrilled with their experience. And one of the things I think that gets forgotten sometimes, guys, is it's not just a system for doing goalie drills virtually, but it's actually got in like 1/4 of the drills that are in it are sort of neurocognitive drills. And I know right now goalies have all sorts of different products coming their way as things they can be doing off ice to improve, and a lot of great things out there today for improving their neurocognitive system. But
What
there's
is that,
a lot of,
by the way, for those that aren't familiar?
it's beyond just visual training, but your ability to track multiple objects in space, to react to items as they come up, well, for example, today was working on Sensorina, and they've got a drill built in there where you actually have to solve a little math problem, which will tell you which shooter is about to be releasing the puck next, and that stresses your mental acuity as you're doing this drill, and it increases the challenge level, presumably because you're having to read and not literally calculate, but deal with multiple
Multitask?
sensory input. And so it's got that that old traditional light board that has been around for 20 years where you're whacking on various lights in your peripheral and your central vision as they come on. They've got the multiple object and space tracking, and then they've put their own sort of twist on them so that you've got, for example, the light board, there's a screen sort of comes in and out. That's things that you can only do in the virtual space that you're not able to do in the real world. So, there's a lot of really interesting and new things that I'd never seen before that they've created as well. So I think the fact that this can replace more than just that training that you're doing on the ice, and it can replace the training that you're doing off ice today already as well. So all sorts of different options in there for Sensorina. Our experience talking to NHL and junior goaltenders who've used this is that you use Sensorina in the morning and you see a difference in the afternoon on the ice with your tracking. I think I mentioned this last week. One goaltender saying it's like a cheat code using Sensorina, and that
was your son.
Was it? Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. So he cheats all the time, but it's but similar things we've heard from a lot of guys about that ability for it to track on the ice. So we've been thrilled by our experience with Sensorina, Darren, as have all our testers, and I look forward to getting it in your hands soon as well.
Brain training is what you're looking for, Darren. Neurocognitive. It's basically brain training. It's a way to train your brain to function at a higher level that's related to the processing we do in goal. And one guy who to the visual and the multi-object.
To the physical.
It's one of the goalies that we've talked to, and we're going to have more from him next week leading into a little tease here. We'll have a little Sensorina special coming up here at In Goal Radio and on ingoalmag.com.
Wow.
And one of the guys who
I don't even know if we're allowed to say that, but Woody's throwing it out there. So what the heck?
We're not allowed to say that, but we're still teasing it. That's the best tease ever.
Yeah, but one of the guys that I've talked to recently about how much he loves this program is Eric Comrie, who just got his first win with the New Jersey Devils. Eric has been in quarantine 3 times this year. Thank goodness he has Sensorina to help him train every time he's stuck in a hotel room. And it's funny because he really does swear by it. And we'll have him on to talk about some of the things that he really loves about it. But the other thing he loves, he likes throwing it on people that aren't goalies and watching them get lit up. Guess what? Life's a little tougher when you're between the pipes, boys.
If you guys picked up first wins in a while.
Eric, first one in, I think, 3 seasons, although, obviously not many opportunities to start in there. Stuart Skinner, first NHL start, first NHL win for the Edmonton Oilers. Ville Husso with his first NHL win for the St. Louis Blues. And Jake Ottinger had his first NHL win in his first NHL start, not appearance. He had a couple of relief efforts in the bubble, but his first NHL start, first NHL win for the Dallas Stars. And last I checked, he was looking pretty good in his second NHL start tonight as well.
And from there, we go to a guy who's done picking up wins. He's hung up his skates and put his blocker and glove on the shelf. It is Jimmy Howard, a career spent with one team. We catch up with the former Detroit Red Wing about breaking into the National Hockey League with a dynasty and finishing with a team that is full of management that used to be his former teammates. How cool is that, or different is that, and a whole bunch in between. It's Jimmy Howard on In Goal Radio, the podcast, the feature interview presented by Sensorina VR.
Okay, so here we are, the week of the decision. How long, Jimmy, how long did you know this was coming? When did you make this decision, and what brought you to that point where you knew it was time to retire?
Uh, it was about if I remember correctly, it was either end of the first week of December, beginning of the second week of December. And I was out on the ice working with my goalie coach here locally in Detroit that I had during the off season, and I was getting hit by pucks, and I was like, this is just not any fun anymore. Like, I don't want to be hit by the puck anymore. So that was probably, a telling sign that it was probably time that if you don't want to get hit by the puck anymore, what makes you think you're going to go out there and, compete against these guys, night in and night out and be able to make saves?
How much such a weird season for the guys that are playing, even last year, the bubble, such a weird environment. It's a tough time in the world for a lot of people. How much did that play into it for you? Like, if this had been a normal September and a regular 3-month off season, might it have been a different decision?
I think it probably would have been a different decision. I think it would have been a lot more difficult decision to make. I mean, I think I was able to, since we were just ended abruptly at, the second week of March, and then, everything just sort of dragged on. The off season was just so long that, I think I was able to process everything, internally. There wasn't really a set date of when the season was going to start when, I started thinking about more and more retirement. Do I really want to move away from my family? Do I really want to move away from, my 4 kids and my wife and live in a bubble for 6 or 7 months? Like, is it, at the end of the day, is it really worth it to chase a dream of holding the Stanley Cup up over your head again? Like, is it really worth chasing it? Like for something that may never even happen.
Now, the kids coaching your son's hockey. I'm guessing that would have probably, because instead of the regular September, camp starts, now you're at home because there is no season, and you get a chance to be a part of all those things that you haven't had a chance to be a part of, taking the kids to school, picking them up, sports, minor hockey, things like that. How much are you, Coach Jimmy Howard, how are you liking that title?
I'm cherishing it. I love being home. Being the dad. Obviously it was challenging at first trying to find my way around the household because my wife and the kids, like, they had the routine, like, of me, constantly being gone all the time. So, they knew what to expect me. I was just, sort of hit the ground running there, in March when everything was shut down. But I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to, coach my kids. I'm actually the head coach now of James's, my oldest son's AAA team, and one of the assistants with, Henry out here in Michigan. So it sort of filled my hockey void. Like, I'm at the rink still, 5, 6, 7 nights a week with them. And I really enjoy teaching these kids. I love teaching them to the point where, it just goes off in the brain and it clicks and they're like, oh, like that's, I find that, really rewarding that, I'm able to, give these kids, knowledge that I've grown up, being able to get from all the great coaches that, I've had over the years.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty hefty list, hey? Like, if you look at some of the guys that you've played for, but it gives you your hockey fix and you don't have to get hit by pucks. Like, there you go, right?
It's a win-win, right? It's a win-win. I'm able to, still work with the little goalies out on the ice, but, at the same time, I'm not putting the gear on and going out there. And, it's kind of nice to be able to wake up now. It's February 1st and not just have to roll out of bed, to be able to bounce out of bed, stand up, and not your whole body hurts. It's a good feeling.
Now, James, Henry, 9 and 6. So have we got any goalies in the family? And if the question inevitably comes, Jimmy, Dad, I want to play goal, what's the answer? No problem, or what? Like, because we've heard different ones over the years.
I don't have any goalies. James and Henry are both forwards. I told them, what did I tell them? Maybe a couple of years ago, I was like, there's more money in scoring goals. So I actually brought them down both times when they both said they wanted to be goalie. I brought them down in the basement and Sky Hughes, Von Rep, gave me some, little kids goalie equipment, and I put them in the net, and I grabbed the ball and I just started ripping it at them. I was like, "You still want to be goalie?" And they're like, "Nope, I'll play out." So yeah, they both, are both good, little skaters. So it's fun to watch them.
Now, other goalies on the team, obviously, do you find yourself drawn to the position at all? I mean, at the age of 9, how much coaching are you doing? Is it just little things? Because I guess in a long-winded way, what I'd like to ask is we've seen this shift towards, on James's team, is there a full-time goalie at 9? Is that a good thing in your mind if there is? Or because we've seen a lot of coaching at a very young age for goaltenders, a lot of goalie-specific stuff at a very young age. And I'm curious what your background was when you first started playing goal and how you sort of see that shift. Are there positives? Are there negatives? Coming at it from this angle now, what do you see?
Well, I guess I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because I started when I was playing net when I was 6 years old, 6 or 7. So, for me, their first year squirt. So that would be Adam, I believe, in Canada, if I remember correctly.
To be honest with you, they change names all the time. And because I don't have kids, I can never keep track.
Yeah.
Or I don't have kids that play hockey, I should say.
They're 2011 and 2014 are both my boys. So we'll go by birth here just to,
all right,
save it.
Simplify.
But I mean, as far as like goalie, like it's tough for me to say because when I was growing up, that's what I wanted to play. And that's what, I stuck with all the way up through. Now, did I still enjoy like skating out like every once in a while if I got the opportunity? Yeah, but for the most part, I wanted to be the guy that was, between the pipes, stopping the puck. But, as far as style, like, our kid that plays net for us, he is our only goalie. So he's our full-time goalie. But, I do a lot of little things with him, especially with skating, lots and lots and lots of skating. Constantly telling him if you can't move in this stuff, then you're not going to be able to make saves. Hand position, getting his hands out in front of him because I feel like, little kids, they probably get tired a little bit easier and, those hands start creeping back in. So constantly on him, but, with hand position and lots and lots of skating, using his edges, to be able to move around that crease because I believe, that's, it's probably the most important part about being a goalie.
I was just going to say, Jim Bedard is like just if and when he hears this interview, he'll be smiling ear to ear because you did a lot of skating when you worked with him.
A lot of skating.
It wasn't always the same. The skating wasn't always the same as what other guys were doing. The skating that you did was a lot more gliding, a lot more edge, a lot more drift. Did you see the comparisons between that and what other guys were doing, or is that just all you knew when you were with the Red Wings in terms of that skating style? And how important was the work you did with Jim Bedard on that?
That was all I knew pretty much because that's who I was working with every single day during the season. So all that skating that we did, especially with Babs wanting me to play at the top of the crease and the puck went in and I was in the crease. I was like, that's where you sink. You're sinking. That's the deep end of the pool. I don't know. It used to be what you always say whenever a puck would go in and I was in the blue paint. So all I know how he is when you're out top of the crease in the white, the puck doesn't go in. When you're in the blue, it goes in. So it's important for me to be able to move around the crease. So I think that's why Jim and I, constantly did a lot of, skating drills, where a lot of that was, drifting, in and out and, getting to the top.
How do you stop drifting? Honestly, like so many people do it, and I don't know how. I've never heard of an answer on how people stop drifting.
It took me a solid 3 or 4 months when I decided like, okay, I got to change my game here. I got to evolve. Like I can't just, continue to be so aggressive, out at the top of the paint. But, where I played, it was sometimes I was, like a foot and a half outside of the crease. It was kind of old school, but, especially when guys were coming down the wing, but, when it started, middle end of August, with Sal, where instead of having to be out at the top of the crease or being that far out, it was basically just stop, heels at the top of the crease or middle of the foot, and that was it. And like basically just allow the play to come to me. Stop moving so much, stop playing everything over aggressive, because these young kids that are coming into the league now are, they're so skilled. When you're playing that aggressive, they just pass it around you pretty much. Like they're able to make these plays. So I was just trying to be more, I guess, a lack of a better term, being patient, just standing there and letting the play, come to me.
Would you have to anchor your feet? Almost feel like you're putting down roots?
No, I actually, even with everything, I actually made my stance less narrow. Like, yeah, I used to be very, very wide. Like even when I was aggressive, like I'd have a wide stance space. So I actually narrowed it, and it allowed me to, move, more efficiently within the crease. And I started, after, several games of, making, saves where I just had my feet underneath me. I wasn't, relying on my depth and reach and, flexibility. That's where it actually, the game started to slow down for me a little bit, where I wasn't rushing around in the crease. I was able to, I was just concentrating and just getting to a spot in the crease where my body was between the middle of the net and their stick, and, basically, being patient on my edges in the narrow stance, or narrower stance.
It's funny because I remember getting asked who's the most aggressive goalie in the NHL. And there was a period there where like everyone assumed that when they thought of aggressive, they assumed like they thought like sprawling all over the place and that type of action. But there was a stretch there where I used to answer you, but you weren't sprawling all over the place. It was just like you said, off the depth. Like there was so much depth off the rush, and you were able to still move so well despite being that far out and being that wide in your stance. Like once you started to narrow it up, did the game get easier? Like, because to be able to do what you were doing was remarkable, and the ability to move from that was remarkable. Did it get easier physically to go the other way? Was it less work, or
it was less work? Because sometimes I felt like, because I had, shorter distances to move. So sometimes I got there and I'm like, I felt like I was almost waiting. Like initially, like when we first, made the transition, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much time I could actually have here in the crease. But, it was just something that I felt like, and Sal felt like if we shored up this thing, we might be able to tax on some, a couple more years onto the career, and it did. But it just, when you're playing so aggressively and you're out at the top of the crease, like it's all, it's a lot of timing, like, to be able to move and everything and read that play, like developing, so like sometimes you have to see that play before it even develops to be able to get across. When I got, into the more narrow stance and, took a lot of the depth off and just played, toes to heels, the top of the crease. You didn't really have to see, play developing, even though, I did, but you'd have more time.
Now, the other part of that time is being able to trust your hands. Mm-hmm. And you talked about it in terms of coaching the kids. The two things you emphasize are the skating and having the hands out there. And I remember that's another conversation we had too. And again, even when you were low and wide, you were always able to keep them forward. Always had good hands. Where does that come from? Like, was the hands forward a teaching thing that you picked up along the way, or was that just something that came from maybe even playing other sports, when you were younger? Where did that importance of that balance, and how did you keep it in your game as a sort of staple over the years?
Well, I played a lot of baseball, growing up until I was 12 or 13 years old, and then decided.
What were you? What position?
Catcher, shortstop, and second base. So,
makes sense.
All the fun spots, right? Out on the field, you get the most action. But I played a lot of baseball growing up. All my buddies loved playing baseball. So even in the summertime when we weren't, at Little League, we were still, playing baseball somewhere else. So that's probably, why I had such a good, glove hand. But, hands out in front of me was always emphasized, even when I was a little guy, when my dad was coaching me, like, to have my hands out in front of me. And then when he finally was like, oh, I can't do this on my own anymore. And he started bringing me to the goalie coach by the name of Barry Madigan up in Ottawa. He started to explain it to me why you wanted your hands out and everything like that. And it made sense because you're cutting down the shooter's angle by having your hands out like that. Like the closer they get, the harder and harder it'll be for them to elevate it up over top of you.
And I was always told it was so you could see the puck hit your hands and you could have control. But both reasons make sense, right?
Yeah, both reasons. Like, be out there so you can watch the puck come into your blocker or into your glove. But also the biggest thing that sort of just stuck with me was like you're actually cutting down the angle without even realizing it, especially the closer they get in tight.
I just want to loop back to this because I know you guys were talking a little bit about Jimmy Bedard and going through things with in those middle of your career and early days. Did you like keeping track of the shots on the bench? Because I've asked Ozzy about this and I know his answer. So I'm curious about you.
It wasn't shots; it was face-offs, and it was so annoying. It was so annoying. It was the absolute worst. Oh, it was so bad. Because even if you didn't get them spot on, like Babs was still up your rear end about it. Like, can't even chart the face-offs. Like, sorry, I missed one. My bad. I don't know if it's going to be the end-all, be-all to the outcome of this game, but no, absolutely despise charting those face-offs for him.
It's one of the things I miss.
Pass the sticky note down at every TV timeout. Like, it was absolutely painful.
I was just going to say, that's one of the things I miss about Mike not coaching anymore is when they show the head coach on the bench, seeing those yellow sticky notes stuck to the back of the glass, knowing that's what that was.
No, the best was when you'd hand it to him, he'd just crumple it up without even looking at it. Throw it. Why? Okay, so tell me again why I'm doing this. Like, tell me again, why am I doing this?
I've never, in all the times that I've talked to Mike, I've never mentioned, and I don't know why, but next time I will. I mean, the guys hated that. Just whatever you do in the future, Mike, don't make your guys chart face-offs because they all hated it.
Oh, every single one of us. Always talk about it. What's the worst? Charting the.
Any close calls while you got your head down doing that?
That's another thing. Like, you're not. I don't care who you are as a backup in the NHL. You're not wearing a mask while you're on the bench. Like, and there was one time I actually got hit with a little blooper in Philly. I remember just taking the clipboard and going down to the video guy and just chucking it at him and said, "You're doing this." So, yeah, Ozzy actually got a kick out of that. He got a lot of photos that night of me having to ice down the egg on my forehead.
Ozzy said he would intentionally screw them up, so they stopped asking him.
He still, I mean, even when he screwed him up, he still had to do it. I don't like the best was Oz was the best because he had some clout. I couldn't really say anything, but it didn't matter what time of the game it was or if we were up by a goal, we're down by a goal, and there was a face-off and it was late in the game, and Babs would yell down to Oz, "Who should take the draw?" And like probably most of the young guys, if it wasn't Oz, like on the bench would yell out Pav or Z, but Oz would always yell out Drapes. It didn't matter. It was always Drapes.
Dude, that's worth it. That's worth it right there. Love it. Goaltending wise, VH, RVH, like what was the hardest thing to learn?
Probably for the reverse was getting that boot, that skate to sit flush right on the post. That was probably the biggest thing is, learning that when that first got introduced to me, like being able to bump post to post, I was like, how do these guys do this? Like, I was like, I couldn't like, and then once, playing with the strings to be able to get my skate a little bit more flush to the ice, getting rid of the strap that goes to the back of the skate, like we all had back in the good old days, getting rid of that and having a little bit more ankle mobility, allowed for me at least. And it seems like it's working for everyone else to be able to get in that position, because it is an awkward position. And, to have all that pressure on your hips and knees, especially as you see, younger kids, try to get into it more and more, it's probably not the smartest. So, for me, it was just a lot of trial by error. We would work on it every single day before practice and every single day after practice, because, I was determined to get it down, but, also I screwed it up a lot. So I had to work on it.
That's funny. So toe ties, little gap in the toe ties so you could get in the
Yeah.
post and then just ditch that bootstrap. It's all about relieving that tension. Eh? And if you don't
Yeah.
have I still see guys now, I won't name names, but there's a guy that's trying to change his right now. And I'm watching it on the ice and there's no gap in the toe tie. And so your margin for error going into that post is almost nil.
Yeah, you have none. Like, at least with the tie there on the laces, like, you can give yourself a little bit of leeway. But even then, it's still tough. When you miss that post, like, it's tough to get out of. There's only one guy I know of really in the league that can get out of it by missing the post, and that's Tuukka. And I still haven't figured out how he does it. Like, how he's got his whole foot and half his pad inside of the net. I'm like, how does he even move out of there?
Well, so see, we need to get Jimmy a subscription to In Goal Premium so he can see the article on how Tuukka uses shin on pad. Because it's funny, because Bob Essenza, their goalie coach, told every summer he gets questions from other goalie coaches like, why do you let Tuukka do it that way? And he's like, because it is less stress on the body. And have you seen how good he is at doing it?
Yeah, it's amazing how he does that. I still haven't figured out how he pushes off.
I can't figure out how you guys do the flipper, like with the skate up and you rotate towards the corner and then you rotate back. Like rotating back is easier, but rotating out on your heel, like and you guys do it like crazy good. And even somebody that sort of understands the game, you can't. The amount of athleticism and flexibility in your hip and dexterity and edge work is crazy.
Well, I think that all has to do with your anchor leg, because that's the anchor leg that's, keeping you pushed into the post. So long as you have that foot, on that post, like that anchor leg that, swivels back and forth, like that was the easy part for me. Like, that was actually, I was like, oh, okay, now I feel comfortable. I can get my body leaned up against the post and I can still have all this, all this weight still on my anchor foot, because at the end of the day, when you're in the reverse, it's all about that anchor foot that's, in control of the whole position there.
Okay, we've talked about a little bit of technique. We've talked about some of your influences in terms of goalie coaches from Ottawa, and obviously Jim Bedard. And you mentioned Sal, Jeff Saleko. What about playing partners? Because, whether it was Ozzy or, with Dom for a little bit there, even if it was just in camp in the early year, like, where were some of the influences there? Anybody that jumps out where there was like a real back and forth about the position and how you played it and you're picking up off each other over the years?
Watching Ozzy in 08, 09 Cup run. The year we won in 08, but also in 09, watching him, but also watching Dom and how they prepared every single day, and, how much they just lived in the moment. Like, they never thought about the game or the practice until their gear was coming on. And yeah, like, if you guys both have gotten probably opportunities to probably talk to Ozzy, like, we know how much of a different bird he is. So, and Dom was the same way. I don't know how many times Dom burned an English muffin at breakfast in the morning at the Joe, because he'd forget about it, because he'd be off worrying about something else that had nothing to do with hockey whatsoever. So, watching those guys and how, they just sort of lived in the moment when it was time to play. They went out and they did their jobs. So, they never got, too far in the future, and they never really, dwelled about the past. They just, went day by day, and watching them in '08 do it, and then, watching us again in '09, but coming up short was, very valuable, and me learning on, how strenuous of a job this can be, but, it can also be a lot of fun by, just being in the moment.
Were you good at that?
Yes and no. I think I got better at it as my career lengthened, but at the beginning, like I probably had too many vices, that too many superstitions that I had to go through, where I felt like if it got knocked off that I wasn't going to play well, which is furthest thing from the truth. So, but it was, but I was stuck in my ways, sort of.
How do you shake that stuff?
I just got to the point where I was like, this is like taking over my life. Like on game day, like I'd have to do like the same thing, drive the same route to the rink. It was like I had to do all this like little nuance, like pain in the butt things, where I was like, this is ridiculous. So it was the 2015 or 2016 beginning of those seasons where I was like, enough is enough. Just got rid of all of it.
Oh, you rinsed them all at one time?
Did it all. Got rid of it. And I was like, enough. Like I just couldn't take it anymore. I just felt like it was taking over my life, like on game days.
This is a personal question, and feel free, you don't have to answer it, but did you lean on professional help to do that? Or did you just decide one day, I need to be free of this?
No, I actually contacted a sports psychologist that we worked with once or twice before, like when I was at the US program in Ann Arbor. I gave him a call and was like, listen, I got to get rid of all this stuff. Like, what should I do? What are the steps that, I should do? And he basically, just gave me a couple of steps, and, and it worked for me. Like, I'm not saying it might work for everyone, but it just worked for me.
You must have felt free, or did you have more fun? Or was it
I had
a
more
hard
fun.
transition? Yeah.
No, I had more fun. Like, guys used to be almost nervous to talk to me, like on game days, because I had to feel like I had to get my mind, starting, at 8 o'clock in the morning, in the right frame to be able to play. It was, it ended up starting just to be exhausting. So I felt like I was wasting so much energy, to make sure everything went right, during the day in order for me to play well, when really it probably, had nothing to do with it.
Now, were there any that you brought back in, like even small ones, or was it just pretty much get my eyes and my body warm and I'm good to go?
Yeah, it was basically just get my eyes and body, warmed up, and just go out there and play. Let your mind be free. Like, one of the big things that he did tell me is that I should probably take a lot more deep breaths during the games. He's like, how often do you think about just taking a deep breath out there on the ice? I was like, well, unless I'm breathing hard, not really. Unless I just got done with a 5-on-3, or we just got hemmed in the zone for 2 minutes, probably not thinking about, too often taking some deep breaths. But, one thing that he was like, be conscientious of how your body feels like after you take a couple of deep breaths out on the ice, where, in through your nose, out through your mouth, right before the puck's dropped. And I started doing that, and for me, it just helped me relax more.
Masks. You only played for one team, one organization, original 6. So, what was your thought process over the years? How much did it change?
I'm not all that artistic, so it was really up to Bishop Designs. I'm not that good on it. I would give him like some sort of way that I wanted to go, but for the most part, I'd just let him run with it. He'd show me a sketch and he'd be like, "What do you think of this?" I'd be like, "Looks good. Just fire it on there."
And did you keep them all?
No, I have 2 masks.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. All the rest have been, obviously auctioned off for charities. So I have 2. I have the outdoor game from when we were at the Big House.
Yep.
and my Olympic mask.
Good for you. That you got those two. But you wore a lot of Hockey Fights cancer masks. Like me, you wore a lot of
Mhm.
special edition masks as well. And you only kept two. That's interesting.
Yep, those are the only two that I have.
When you look back on their career, like is there a moment? Is there a game? Like you mentioned that outdoor game. Is it your first game? Like what's the one that jumps out as the memory that pops out first?
The memory that pops up first is obviously playing in my first one against the LA Kings at the Staples Center, all the way back in when, geez, 14 years ago. So I think it was November 2005. I think it was, or 2006, maybe somewhere in there. But obviously getting the 4-2 victory, and just being able to be out on the ice. And back then, Stevie was still on the team. Brendan Shannon, Chris Chelios, Nicholas Lidstrom. You had Draper Maltby, Ozzy, like Brian Rafalski. Like the list just goes on and on. Like all these great players that were playing on that team. But the one moment that sticks out the most of that game was before the game. Steve comes up to me and goes, "Howie, congratulations! This is your first of many, but you better not lose tonight." And that's when it first hit me, like the butterflies. And this was right before we were going out for the national anthem and start of the game. So that's when the butterflies picked up.
Now that was 05-06. You played 4 games with the Wings that year. Had you been to camps before that? I apologize for not knowing. I know you're at Maine, so I didn't know if you got a chance to go to any camps.
I wasn't allowed to. Back then, the NCAA rules were against that.
Okay, so even in 05-06, even coming under, like, we've got a salary cap at that point, so it's not quite the same. But I've been in those locker rooms as a media guy, and I remember walking in, and you look in all the forwards would be on the left, and all the defensemen would be on the right, and it's like, okay, those are all future Hall of Famers, and those are all future Hall of Famers. Still a lot of those guys left in 05-06. What's that like going into that environment? Like you said, Yzerman, Lidstrom, like the Chelios, the list just goes on and on, like all timers. What's it like being a rookie?
And I forgot to mention Z and Pav too. Like, how can I forget about those guys? But like, I realized that I was a small fish in a very big pond right away. Like, I remember being on the ice in training camp and just being in awe and watching these guys and remembering like, oh, I got to actually mix in a save here because everyone's watching up there. So, it was just like, those were the guys that I grew up, idolizing, like watching so much hockey as a kid. And now I'm in the same dressing room with them. It was just so awe-shocking.
So after they're done, it's unique because a lot of your teammates are still or came back in management or broadcasting or the top job in Stevie. Was it different interacting with those guys?
No, that's not at all. Not really with any of the guys. I mean, obviously it's different with Steve because he is your boss. So, that's different, than, last year being able to, play a couple of games with him. But that part's probably the most different because, yeah. But, everyone else, no, like it.
That's great.
All the same, yeah.
Because every now and then I get intimidated by Woody because he's my boss and I knew him before, and now he's my boss. And can I chirp him the same, or can I beak him? And then I just don't.
We still, just like the boys in the room when we see each other. So it's none of that.
Now you mentioned earlier before we started recording, you still love to watch, and you were telling me who do you like to watch most? What gets you up to still watch hockey? And you were a guy that watched when you were playing, like on an off night in the season. If you were on the road, you'd tune in a game. Yeah,
I would. I'm a hockey fan. I love the game of hockey. Like I love watching it. Love, still, even though I'm retired, I still love watching these guys to see what they're able to do because sometimes I'm just, just a wow factor. Love watching the big cat down in Tampa, Andre Vasilevsky. Love watching Markstrom. now that even though he's in Calgary now, but love watching him. Carey Price, Freddie Anderson, Carter Hart, just to name a few. Obviously Tuca, my buddy Tuca. So really love watching those guys, and especially if they're facing off against each other.
What do you like about maybe a point or two from each one of those? Not through the whole list, but a couple of those guys.
Well, we'll start, right with Vasilevsky. I mean, just his athleticism, and his flexibility. His when you think he's down and out, and then all of a sudden he makes a save, and you're just like, wow, like how did he just do that? Like, he kind of he's like the new version of Dom, the way he can make some of those saves. Tuca with his competitiveness. I think that's one thing that people really don't talk about Tuca a lot is his competitiveness. When he's in there, like he's locked in. He's, very, very competitive individual. Carey, just like, I mean, he's just the gold standard of every single, whatever goalie, wants to be. The way he's able to move in the net, the way everything just sort of looks so effortless, is fun to watch. Who else did I mention? Marsham, same thing, sort of like I just love his compete level. Like when he's out there, like even though he's a big man, like he just surprises you with his athleticism. He doesn't just rely on being a blocking style goalie. He's got that big frame in net, but he can still flash it around. So it's fun to watch him. And I mentioned Carter too. Carter just the to be 20 years old playing in the market like Philly, which can be rough, on goalies, and to see him and how he's been able to handle that with ease, and he's sort of at 20 years old to see that calmness factor that he has back there for that team is something that's really special.
You ever, I hear you talk about the position, about the game. I know you're loving coaching the kids. Do you ever can look at the future and see the possibility of being a goalie coach? Like, is that something you'd ever entertain or ever thought about?
I haven't given that much thought, really.
It would involve, I guess the other thing is you'd have to travel again. You'd be right back into that, away from everything.
Yeah. Like right now, like right now, I just want to spend time with, my family and with my kids. Like, I feel like I've missed so much over the years, especially with my older boys. But, I feel like right now I just need to, make up some time. So I'm not throwing anything off to the side or throwing anything onto the back burner. But, right now, just, concentrating on them.
Being able to go and like crack in a quick 18 is pretty good too.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome come this spring. I can't wait for this snow to be gone.
And just be able to go and do it and not have to worry about anything else.
No, like drop the kids off at school. What do you need me to do? Oh, nothing. I'm going to play 18s.
You'll have different seasons now. You have backyard rink, make your backyard rink season for the kids, and then golf season. That'll be the transition for the future.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, yeah.
Good stuff.
Jimmy, this has been awesome. Thanks for letting me jump in 10 minutes into it. Apologize for being late. I'll skate laps, so I'll do whatever punishment you have come on my way. But good luck. Good luck on the golf course. And you've always been great around the rink. And that's been my favorite part, is being able to catch up with you after and say thanks for that part of it. And congratulations on an awesome career. It's been fun to watch.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Drafted in 2003 in the second round, went on to start 523 games. How about this one? Faced 15,313 shots. That's just in a game. Never mind practices and warm up and everything else. The 15,000 shots faced by Jimmy Howard in his career.
Just one game. When he said just in a game, I thought, what did he play for the Canucks behind that defense? That was all in one game.
Whoa.
It's been a tough start here. What can I say, folks? I think he has the Red Wings. I think about the history of the Red Wings. I think he actually has the franchise record for saves, like the most saves in Red Wings history. I think that is Jimmy Howard. So faced a lot of rubber. Remarkable career. Not many guys get to say they do it with one team. And he can. And don't forget, this was a Red Wings team that, they let their players, whether it was goalies or otherwise, sort of get overripe in the American Hockey League. That was the philosophy of the day for Kenny Holland, was to leave these guys down there to make sure they had enough experience. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Clearly it worked for a lot of years. But, in today's era where guys that were ready got an opportunity to get in there earlier, that's a couple more seasons at least for Jimmy Howard in the National Hockey League.
4 years in the minors. 4 full years.
Yeah, and some good years down there too. So I remember hearing back at the time, because that's roughly when I was starting to cover things, at least, getting more in depth on goaltending, about how he was ready and how a lot of people that watched him thought he was ready, but that wasn't the Red Wings way.
That was a fun conversation, though.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Like all the numbers, all the accolades, all that. He's a good storyteller.
Yes, and he does not like charting faceoffs.
He was open in ways you wouldn't think sometimes. So nice that he's retired now and he can share some of that with us.
That was a lot of fun, guys. We have to take a bit of a pause here. We'll be back next week. I look forward to these catch ups all week and be able to just hang out and talk goaltending, make fun of Woody a little bit, and pick the brain of one Hutch. But this is the highlight of my week.
Well,
Oh yeah, ours too. Ours too.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome.
Thanks for making fun of me. I got a tease for you for next week.
Oh yeah,
and this will be on the video on the simulcast too. Woody's getting a haircut.
No way.
Yep.
You
can we film it?
It's all gonna go.
It's pretty good.
We'll see.
I think
all gonna go?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of getting attached to it. Once my daughter started braiding it for me, I thought maybe it was time.
This will sum up what Woody looks like right now. There's a chance he might lose legitimate weight when he cuts this hair, and you can't say that about every haircut.
Listen,
but there might be something there to this one.
Once it's gone, I'm literally going to have to go and tighten my hats back up.
Oh no! Right now, a toque for you is a garbage bag. That's a toque. There's so much hair on there. For Kevin Woodley, David Hutchins, I'm Darren Millard. Thanks to Jimmy Howard for joining us on the Sense Arena VR feature interview. And of course, really appreciate the relationship with the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, and Source for Sports Surrey. Enjoy the hockey, everyone. We'll chat with you next week on In Goal Radio, the podcast.